In this video, we have a serious topic, one that is so important to understand and know about and to be careful of. And it has to do with the topic of something called sexual abuse, okay? Sexual abuse. And that is when someone basically uses sex as a weapon. And it's not its intention. Sex was not made to be that. Sex is supposed to be about reproduction. It's supposed to be about love and affection and being close to someone and showing affection in a special way. Sometimes sex is used in another way that is used to hurt people, and it's never okay. And unfortunately, it's something that is a little bit common. It happens to a lot of people. And it happens to boys and it happens to girls. And there's different types of abuse that happen. So you'll hear a lot of different terms. There'll be a lot of different words that will mean specific things that go under this umbrella of the topic of sexual abuse. Does that make sense? So, first, let me explain a little bit about the weapon piece. And I heard this analogy when I used to be a counselor to help people who've gone through sexual abuse. And one of the things I remember in that training was a story that someone shared. And he said, sex is used like a weapon. He says, imagine a frying pan. And think about what sort of things you associate with a frying pan. Well, I think about cooking. I might even think about breakfast and eggs with a frying pan or something yummy that I might cook in a frying pan. Now, if somebody took that frying pan in their hand and smacked you in the face with it, are you still going to think about cooking? No, not exactly, right? So now that frying pan became a weapon to hurt someone and hit them in the face with it, okay? I want you to think about sex or sexual touching or talk or harassment or all these different things we're going to discuss in a moment being used like a weapon to hurt someone, to exert power over them, control over them, make them feel bad about themselves or powerless, okay? Those are some of the things that are ways that sex could be used like a weapon, all right? So next we're going to talk about the different terms that you may hear umbrellaed under this subject that I'm going to define a little bit further for you, okay? All right. So basically when we talk about all of these terms, they all have to do with somebody touching or referring to private parts of the body, okay? And those you could say are basically the parts of the body that are covered by a bathing suit, right? If we're in public and we're wearing clothing and we're wearing a bathing suit, we're covering for women the breasts and the reproductive area, right? So we're covering the vagina and the vulva and the butt, right? We're covering those parts of our body, okay? For men or for boys, they cover the penis and the testicles and the scrotum, the sac that holds the testicles, right? Those are all private parts in the butt as well, okay? Now, when somebody touches, refers to or makes mention of these parts, those there's certain terms you'll hear for what that is called, okay? So for example, there's something called sexual harassment, right? And sexual harassment is when somebody talks about sexual things or is inappropriate in their conversation, and or they might touch or tickle or point or send an inappropriate email that has a joke about sexuality or sexual things, right? Or somebody feels like they're being flirted with and it's not a two-way street. They don't want to be, and it's in a workplace or at school or somewhere where there's certain rules around that kind of behavior. at those locations, at those places. So it could be considered sexual harassment if somebody is doing or saying inappropriate things to someone. Make sense? Okay, that's one term. Now, you may also hear something called molestation or sexual molestation, and that's to molest or harass too, but molestation is typically more touching, okay? So it would be touching the private areas. That might be touching the with fingers or hands or objects or things, okay? So that is molestation. Then you have sexual assault. And sexual assault is also similar to molestation, where it has to do with the private parts again, but it includes like a lot of stuff. There's like a lot of things included under sexual assault. If somebody were to put their mouth on someone's privates, if somebody were to use an object or touch or use their fingers or hands on someone's private parts, that could be under the term sexual assault, okay? And it's always when somebody doesn't want them to. This is when somebody does that without something called consent. And watch our video on consent as well, okay? But consent is a fancy word for permission. Permission. Somebody doesn't have permission to touch you there. You didn't want to be touched there, and someone did it anyways. It's not okay. It's never okay. All right? Okay. Now, another thing you might hear about is something called rape. And rape is very specific. Rape is very defined very narrowly, and it's when somebody puts their penis in someone's vagina without permission, and they use force or coercion, which is a fancy word for like trying to convince them, or pressure. It's pressure to do that. Okay, so if somebody made someone have sex with them, that could be considered rape. Okay, all right. I hope that's clear. So those are some of the terms that you'll hear about. The thing that I also want to mention is that, unfortunately, with sexual abuse, what we see, a lot of times we think it's a stranger. We might think this is like someone who is like crazy and out on the streets and is like grabbing people and raping them out of the bushes, okay? And you might think that because that might be something you've seen on the news. The truth is, though, that typically sexual abuse is not from a stranger. Typically, it's somebody someone knows, an acquaintance, maybe even someone they know really well. It could even be family or a friend or family friend, okay? And so really it's important that we are savvy and we are careful and listen to our gut instincts when something doesn't seem right. And if somebody was ever inappropriate with us, or we felt uncomfortable, to check in with our feelings, maybe talk to someone, an adult or a friend or somebody you trust, that you can bounce that off of, that experience off of, and get some feedback and be able to process it and know what you felt or whatever it was, right? To go to get through it, okay? It's important that somebody talks about this stuff, right? And sometimes people might even press charges. I mean, because these are some of these terms that we discuss, like rape and sexual assault, for example, are felonies. They're a big deal. Like, you can go to jail and stuff, like, big deal, right? It's never okay to make somebody do anything they don't want to do. I don't care what it is, especially sex, especially touch their body. If somebody says, don't touch me, you don't touch them. Period. Makes sense, huh? Wouldn't you want that? If I didn't want somebody to touch me, I would like them to stop when I asked them to. Okay? And that's the respect that we need to show to everyone, right? And it's so important. That's so important. All right. Treat people the way we want to be treated, right? The golden rule. Okay. So if you have further questions about this subject, you need support or help, or you have a friend that's gone through this and they might need support or help, there are lots of great websites out there. You can go to the RAINN organization, RAINN.org, That's a Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network. That's a great resource. And on that page, I know there'll be a ton of other resources, okay? So if you need more help with this subject, parents, if this is a subject that hits home for you, maybe you had some abuse growing up or at some point in your life, and you need to talk to someone about that, make sure you do that. Get a therapist, talk to a therapist, because this will show up in your parenting as well with your child now, right? We want to make sure that you're taking care of you, so you can take care of all your little ones, all right? So make sure you do that. All right, that's it for now. I'll see you in our next video. Bye-bye.